Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm your host, as always, Charlotte Stebbing-Mills, and today I'm joined by Sharon James, who is a pioneer in women's health and empowerment and a founding partner for the GCC Menopause Summit coming up this October. Welcome to the show, Sharon. It's so good to see you today.
Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I'm super excited to get jumped in with this topic because it is something that is definitely coming more into my personal sphere of awareness now. And it's something that I know a lot of our listeners have stressed about massively when it comes to kind of like women's health and their journey, but also for the men that are listening to this podcast. There's going to be something in this conversation for everyone, because I think, women, we are extremely resilient and strong, and we'll figure things out and we'll show it for everyone else. But men are a part of that typically in a lot of relationships, and they have to experience their own kind of version and perspective of women that are going through different health changes. So I think there's something in this conversation for everyone. So before we get into the real nitty-gritty of the episode, I would love for you to share a bit more about you, what you're up to in the world, like what's led you to do what you do today.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've been in the wellness industry for over 30 years since I left university. Seems ages ago now. And I've always, been a coach or a trainer or a life coach. So this is just what I do. And over the last 7 or 8 years, I've really been in the menopause space purely because of what happened to me. So, what I do generally with my clients is I look at nutrition, health, sleep, exercise, stress levels, mental well-being in a holistic form. So I coach women and men. I do coach men as well. But when I started going through the menopause, which I didn't know I was going through the menopause, I then really realized that I work in that age group of women who are really not understanding their bodies because there's not a lot of information out there. And I started going through it. My body was changing. I was fit, healthy, ate relatively well. My sleep was great, but my body was changing. And I thought, if I don't understand it, how the heck are everybody else going to understand it? So I started delving deep into what I can do for myself. And there was just nothing around, nothing. And I'm only talking, I'm 55 now, so 45, 10 years ago, it's not that far away. And there was just nothing, but this word kept coming up called perimenopause. And I just didn't know never heard of it before. Yeah. And basically it just started then sprouting all these symptoms at me. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like, this is me. And it was, it was certain symptoms like weight gain, energy levels dropping. My sleep was still okay, but just things that were just highlighting to me that something was changing in my body, and it was my hormones obviously changing. But so when I dug deeper, I started to do some changes. I think we'll talk about that a little bit later, but so I then really realized that I needed to change the way I started working with my clients, especially women in this age bracket. And I don't want to put an age bracket on it because menopause is not about aging. It can happen to younger people as well. But it's something that we need to be aware of. Like you said, it's coming into your sort of sphere now, your peripheral. And it's from what I've learned, it's really understanding it before you get to that point. And we'll talk about the different stages later. But so that's what I do. I work in this space, education in workplaces, education with individuals, and really looking at their habit changing and lifestyle changes that they need to adapt, because it changes you. If you don't change, it will definitely change you. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
Well, thank you for that, because people like me, I get to learn from your experience, right? And hopefully like prevent some of the symptoms, or at least have an understanding of what my pathway could look like and what my options are. And there's a reason why I invited you on here, because there were a few other people that I could have brought on to speak about this topic, but you come from a similar background to me, from kind of a health and fitness and wellness perspective, where you understand perhaps more of the nuances of the human body compared to the average listener, but not necessarily in that medical scope where we go into medical interventions. Because what I've noticed with friends of ours that have been going through this period of their life is they they get stuck, they don't know where to go. The most common option is you go straight to a doctor, and doctors are very quick then to medicate. And I do believe medication has a place in time for everybody at some point in their lives, potentially. But I think there are many other avenues we can look at first. I don't think we always need to jump straight to things that are way outside of our scope of understanding. Because I think the conversation we're going to have today is going to be very relatable, and I think it's going to be very relevant for a lot of people. So thank you, first of all, for obviously coming on the show to share your experience and your expertise, because I think it's just so important. So talk to me about like the journey, set the scene, because for some people this might be common sense, but for others like myself, like I've been pretty much I've been very aware of the infradian rhythm and the women's cycle, and the four different phases typically that we go through on a monthly basis. And I know even that is often a blind spot for some people. They don't know that they even have an infradian rhythm, and they don't understand that throughout a 28-day cycle, we're likely to have these different yeah, exactly, like different stages, different responses in the body, and we're not as attuned as what we could be. And I'm somebody, very fortunately and very gratefully, touch wood, I haven't had too many issues with my own cycle until now. I start to enter this phase. I'm starting to think, okay, well, I need to understand what could be there. So talk to us from like the period right the way through until like post-menopause, or fill me in if there's more gaps there that I'm not even thinking about before that and after
Yeah.
that.
It is, and you know, when there's three stages that you probably heard about. It's the perimenopause, menopause, and post-menopause. But now there's even a pre-menopause, because if we think about females, our hormone fluctuations start from puberty. You know, we start puberty, we have our periods, like you've just said. We've got all those different weeks and cycles that we go through. And I don't know about you, but when I was a teenager, and even up until 5, 6, 7 years ago, I didn't know about these weeks, and I didn't know about training and eating in these particular weeks, how we could really influence how we feel during that journey. So now they've put pre in, because pre-menopause is looking at your hormonal, it's all about hormonal health. That's the be all and end all of it. It's about when we're going through puberty, we're getting loads of good estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and we're thriving. You know, it's amazing. We do have our peaks and troughs, obviously. So at the very beginning, it's about looking after your hormonal health. And like you said, it is about your lifestyle at that point. It's about looking after your nutrition, your exercise, your sleep, you know, your mental well-being, and it's all about that. And I think as women, we don't do enough of that. And I think that's really relevant when we get to this stage of how much we need to start looking after that section. So in the pre-menopause stage, it's really looking after your health and well-being. You know, having a few bad habits is great, but having constant bad habits, you're definitely going to take those into your perimenopause. And like, you know, we are quite healthy, we look after our bodies, we know what changes, we're quite fortunate in that respect, but some women don't. And we can take a lot of what we've gone through in our lives into the perimenopause stage, which actually lasts for 10 years. And a lot of women don't know that. And I think it's the worst stage of menopause.
Yeah.
If we don't get, you know, a grip on it. So you know, the signs of perimenopause can start roughly around about your 40s, but every single woman is different. You and I will go through it very differently. So you know, it's being aware of your body and what's going on. And the common sort of symptoms within that range are the mood swings, the night sweats, your periods actually is the first thing you'll start to see. Your periods will come and go, they'll do what they please, they'll come 1 minute, they'll be really heavy, they'll be light, they'll disappear, they'll come back, and that can fluctuate for quite a while. And then all of a sudden, when they stop, and they stop for a year, that means you've gone through that you're in that menopause phase. So all the symptoms do start to raise their head. Some women go through it without any symptoms. Some women, there's no scale, you know, it's from nothing to severe to very, very severe. Yep. But how you look after your body and your mind and everything else has an impact on those, I believe. And when I've worked with women and we've really dialed back a lot of their habits, their symptoms, dissipate. They might not disappear completely, but they're more manageable and they don't take over your life.
Yeah.
So the symptoms of that are sleep, usually your period, sleep, moods, anxiety, stress. But there's a lot of different things that I'll come on to that a little bit later. But what happens is in that stage, because women are tending to go through sort of their careers or they're having children, all those symptoms are day-to-day symptoms that we can feel. So we don't sort of think, oh, it's the menopause. We just think our lives are just full of stress and these are symptoms of stress coming out.
Yeah.
So it's really pulling back the layers of that and then understanding where you are with that. So then you go into the menopause phase where you don't have a period for 1 year, and it's got to be 1 year. So you might start and your periods have disappeared, but if they come back within a couple of months, you've got to start that year process again. And that goes on for a whole year. Once you've had your year without your period cycle, then you're in post-menopause, like I am now. For the last year I've been in post. And in post-menopause, some of the symptoms might be still there, like hot sweats, maybe, because your body's now sort of regulated, or you've gone for treatment, you've got some kind of treatment. However, in this stage, what we've got to be really mindful of is osteoporosis, heart disease, insulin resistance, because they're the three sort of diseases that we could have if we're not looking after our bodies. And maybe taking HRT and or holistic therapies is something that we need to do should you want to go down that route. So they're the sort of 4 main stages that we've got to look after. And it is really all about having all this estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and it then just coming down, and then we've got hardly anything at the end. But HRT and everything else can replace that, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later. So they're the 4 stages. Yeah. So I'm definitely in the post-menopause now.
Well,
and
I'm on the other end. I'm on the other end.
You're on the other end.
This is a good conversation.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So I'm 35, 36, 35 or 36, 36. And I'm not noting any symptoms yet, but I am very much aware of my friends who are reaching this stage. And like, for example, one at the start of this year, literally for like 3 months of the year, she had extreme brain fog. Pretty much push pause on everything. She's not that much older than what I am. And I've got another friend in particular that springs to mind that is kind of mid 40s. And she's been really feeling the brunt of symptoms. And I've kind of sort of witnessed this journey that she's been on. And it's been really tough. And I think both of those people that I've got in mind have been very much in the beginning of the mindset, this is something they need to endure, right? This is just a part of life. This is just something that I have to get on with. And to your comment that you said there of like, this time of life is, people are busy, they're doing work, they're having kids, they're dealing with their kids, not just having them. There's so many day-to-day stresses. And this notion of we just have to keep going and often thinking more about everybody else than ourselves can start to play a part. So I wonder if you could share with me perhaps any kind of like mindset shifts that are really important at this point when you start to notice some changes, and maybe how do we differentiate between the perimenopausal or menopausal stress versus day-to-day stress?
Yeah, that's a good question, because and I think just touching on that, what you said at the beginning is like we just endure it. And if we go back to our mums and our sisters and that generation, they did, because there was nothing around then. So that endurance part, we don't have to do that anymore. And from the stuff that we're going to talk about. But so basically, when you knowing yourself is the best thing that you can do, first and foremost. Understanding your body, understanding your moods. If you're moody before going into menopause, you're going to be moody in menopause. Do you know what I mean? So understanding what your traits are and your triggers are as you go through this journey, and being truthful with yourself. You've got to be really understanding and truthful. And every woman will go through it at a different age. Usually it's in your mid-40s, but that's not normally not the case. It depends on cultures as well. Different cultures go through it earlier and may experience different symptoms at different times. Generally, the menopause phase, it's around about 51 in the Western world. So roughly around about the 51 mark, that's when you might start losing your periods. So in terms of managing it and understanding it and knowing whether it's life or that, it's knowing yourself. if you have external factors in your life, like your job, your kids, and stuff like that, that are putting stress in your life, and this is your constant, then you know that that's that. But if it gets exacerbated at certain points and you feel like you're losing control, or stuff that you used to be able to manage, you can't anymore, like, or your thinking process, like where you put your keys, or you can't get words out, they're signs that it's to do with the menopause, because those estrogen levels are dropping, and estrogen receptors are all over our bodies, from our brains to our toes. And when that estrogen is not available, that's when these symptoms start to arise. So it's just knowing you and your surroundings and what you usually can handle, and how much you're not being able to cope. Like even getting in a car some days, you get in a car and you're driving and you're really anxious, and it's weird because you could be the best driver in the world, and confidence.
Yeah.
So it's really, first and foremost, it's understanding you, maybe keeping a journal, keeping a diary of these changes, because these are really great as well to take to your doctor. Because when you go to your doctor or your gynae and you go, oh, I'm feeling stress, you mentioned it about medicating, I'm feeling stressed, I'm anxious, I can't sleep, the first thing they'll do is they'll give you medication, rather than going, okay, so maybe you're in this timeline of your menopause, let's have a look at this, and this, and alleviate some of the stresses around you. So it's really about understanding yourself and knowing yourself, and how if you're snapping all the time and you're not normally like that, it's could be doing that.
It's like one of my friends, like the common thing, bless her, I know she'll probably listen to this as well, but her thing is like she'll give me a call and she'll be like, I just wanted to like kill my son today, not literally, but she's just like, I've never felt that way. Like I've never like snapped that much. And it's just like, be kind to yourself, be compassionate. This is something that you're going through. You're not a bad parent. Like this is just where you are right now. Pay attention to it, and then let's put some strategies in perhaps. But it's then that you can then relate that back to sense of self, and then shame can come in, more fear can come in, and then it just compounds, right?
And the whole stigma around the menopause doesn't help either, because we try to contain it ourselves rather than sharing it. And what we said about at the beginning, it affects 50% of the population, but I actually think it affects the whole population, because the atmosphere in the home, for example. And look, it's sometimes these anxieties or these mood changes, we can't help, you can feel them coming on, and then all of a sudden it's too late. The mouth has opened and the words have come out, or your actions have taken place. But it's stepping back and going, you know what, okay, I could have felt a bit better, maybe I should have just walked away, done some breathing exercises, taken myself out for a walk, gone and had, so it's understanding it, and then understanding what you can do to actually sort of manage that space. And when men and children get involved as well, I've had many conversations with clients where the child has actually said to them, Mummy, I think there's something wrong, you're snapping all the time, and my clients have just literally broke down in tears, because it's the child that's actually highlighted that these changes are happening. And so I think it's really important that we have that conversation in the home, because managing your expectations of how you're going to go through the menopause and your hormone fluctuation. You've got maybe a teenager in the home with hormonal rage, and maybe the male's going through something as well, because at the age of 40, males start to go through their andropause, and they start to lose their testosterone. They might get a bit moody, they lose their sense of masculinity, maybe. Libidos on both sides are dropping, so it could have a effect on the relationship. So it is really having that open conversation to help manage it, and be okay with letting people know that you're in this phase of life. That really is a key point.
And I think that's definitely improved, right? The stigma around this, like people like yourself and the work that you're doing, and like the summit that's coming up here in the UAE in October as well, which I believe is going to be an annual thing moving forwards as well. It's helping to bring this to the conversation. This conversation is now happening in the workplaces, which is a good thing as well. So we're moving in the right direction. And fortunately, there's a lot more women involved with the research and the science and the understanding of it all as well. And that was something that wasn't necessarily present before. We was very much working on a men's health timeline and body clock assumptions for a lot of the kind of medical side of things. So I feel like we're definitely moving in the right direction. With regards to symptoms, then, you've mentioned some symptoms already. What are some of the factors that will influence these symptoms becoming even more problematic or potentially reducing them? What are the kind of the key things we need to focus on?
Yeah, so I mean, when we talk about symptoms, we always talk about the main ones, you know, the brain fog, the night sweats, the anxiety, the mood swings, stuff like that, and sleep. And there's a lot that aren't mentioned, like you know, your hair loss, or skin irritation, vagina dryness, or irritation. So there's a lot, and again, it's understanding what's happening with your body and taking, you know, like having a diary. And then when you start to recognize the symptoms, it's okay. It's, you know, maybe do some research or talk to somebody like myself, or your GP, and go, okay, what can I do? And the majority of them you can handle by reducing your stress, looking at your diet, changing your exercise routine, or exercising. The usual stuff that we've all been taught about.
Yeah.
But it's about understanding what's right for you, because a lot of us go, okay, there's a new menopause diet out, it's going to work wonders, and what they've done is they've just, you know, meno washed it, and this is right for every single woman.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. It's the same with intermittent fasting. You know, intermittent fasting is amazing for weight loss for women who are going through the menopause. It has its place for the right people, but it's not right for everybody. So first, again, going back to understanding yourself and looking at your nutrition, for example. It might be like, for my instance, I went more plant-based diet, which really helped me. I feel more energized on it. It's not to say that I wouldn't devour a steak, you know, every now and again, or some chicken or whatever. I feel if my body needs it, I'll have it. But 80% of my time is vegetarian, and cutting out alcohol. Sugar is a massive, massive one for night sweats and stuff like that. Insulin resistance, of course. So there's a whole host of different things that you can do. But I think the main thing, especially when it comes to mindset, it's having to let go of those habits, because they're ingrained in us. You know, if we haven't got that healthy lifestyle going into menopause, it's definitely going to hinder your symptoms when you're going through it. Especially sugar, it has a big effect on hot flashes, for example. If you sleep, it's getting a good sleep management routine. You know, it's like having to re yourself to go to sleep properly, because we wake up at 2, 3, or 4 in the morning. How do we manage that? It could be that your eating patterns are changing, and being in touch with your circadian rhythm. You know, that's another thing as well. Understanding what that is and how you can do it.
Yeah.
For example, if you're suffering from hot flashes or flushes, your circadian rhythm, your body temperature starts to rise around about, well, I think 8 o'clock at night, I think, something like that, your body temperature. So if you're eating heavy meals and having really heavy, you know, food and stuff, your body temperature is going to rise anyway to try and digest that food. So you're just adding to that. So it's looking at changing the times of your eating and what you're eating to help alleviate some of the symptoms. So it is a really bespoke kind of way you need to look at it and manage what's going on with you, because you can be having hot flushes, I might not have any. So what you're doing is irrelevant to me, you know, because I don't need it. So yeah, there's all sorts of different ways. And like you said, we've got more information now, maybe information overload, but it's bringing whatever you need in from that to manage it for you, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what you've highlighted once again there is how important it is to be attuned to what your symptoms are, what your body is telling you. There's another friend of mine that's going through perimenopause at the moment. She went to
a lot around you, haven't you?
I know, right? Tell me about it. Like, this is why I'm like, so this is being presented to me for a reason. So I'm paying attention. And she went straight to the GP as soon as she got symptoms, and they wanted to put her on HRT straight away. And she's very much of a similar mindset to myself, was like, okay, have we tried everything else we can first? And so she said, okay, hold that thought, doc. We'll come back to that if we need to. She went and did her own research, and she's actually leaned into Ayurvedic nutrition. And that is very similar to what you've described in the sense of checking in what foods are creating certain things, because certain foods will like provoke different heat within your body, right? And it's about how do we take the heat out of the body and out of your foods that you're eating that will support a reduction of the hot flushes. So it's like there's so many ways that we can do it, and I think that's so important to consider.
And I think like with food, we all know that food creates a lot of stresses in the body, and inflammation is a really big impact, has an impact on you as well. And I think with taking all that processed food out of your diet, you know, even with me, I'm like your friend. I haven't gone down the HRT route, but I think it's important to say here on that is that HRT back in 2002, I think it was, there was a big study done by the Women's Health Institute. And basically, they highlighted that HRT and cancer were related. Okay, so basically, overnight, millions of women just ditched their HRT, and that was it. So, and what the study didn't highlight is the fact that the study was done on women in post-menopause, so they'd already gone through it, so it was irrelevant. Okay? So a lot of women who should have been taking HRT at that point are really suffering now with osteoporosis, insulin resistance, and cardiovascular diseases. So with HRT, what I always say, I educate my clients what HRT is, what compound pharmacies are, bio or body, and then the holistic therapies that they can choose to do. And you can combine them both, everything. Yep. With HRT, I always say that if you are suffering, like, your lifestyle is suffering, your joints are aching, you're severely with your symptoms, go and take it. Or take something that is going to help you just get that step up to be able to start looking at all the 4 pillars that we've spoke about. Because if you're down on the floor, there is absolutely no way you're going to start looking after your exercise and sleep and everything else, because you're just too tired or you're too stressed. Yep. So I think HRT definitely has its place, and I wouldn't say don't have it, don't take it, but just do your research of what suits you. And then I'll go down the holistic therapy route as well. So, there's loads more studies now done on HRT. It's a better type of HRT that we're taking, or they're taking. And, you can just, loads of women have got their lives back by taking it. So there is a place for it in people's lives.
Yeah, for sure.
And for instance, like for me, I was doing really, really well. And then a couple of months ago, actually more than a couple of months ago, my knees started aching. I've done, I do a lot of exercise, so I could put it down to that, but I just know my body. I know it's not that. Yeah. And I just couldn't put my finger on it. And it's a skeletal muscle. And it's because it's of estrogen. Okay, that's basically what it is. So do I now go take estrogen, or do I carry on not suffering, but feeling the pain that it doesn't stop me doing anything. Yeah. I just feel sometimes when I'm kneeling down, I feel like an 80-year-old getting up, and I'm like, so I'm on that cusp of, do I go get it to help? Because is this going to be a problem in my future health? That's what I'm thinking about. Yeah. Or do I go to the holistic route and seek something else? So I'm on that journey now. I'm looking to see what I can do now, because it worries me a little bit about my future health. Not now, it's later. So that's when you're looking at different therapies and stuff, it's what's going to help you later on in life as well.
So. And I think this is why what you do is so important, because it's not always easy to make those decisions, even when you have this much information, I can imagine. If it was an easy decision to make, you wouldn't probably be on the cusp of deciding, right? You're having to go through this as a part of the journey. And you're very much in the know. So thinking of the average person that perhaps isn't as in the know as you, having somebody like yourself by your side to help you ask the right questions, I think is so important. Have you found that with the kind of work that you do and the coaching that you do, the actual just the support side of it, even without all of the expertise that you bring in, like what are the most beneficial parts of having somebody like yourself kind of going through this journey?
I think first and foremost is that they don't feel alone, because that's one thing that women always say, that they feel alone when they're going through this, because of that stigma of not being able to talk about it, shame, not being able to do their work properly, not being able, function properly. So I think having somebody just to talk to and go, is this normal? And it is, it's a normal biological stage of life, so that's the first and foremost, saying you are in the right place, you're doing you're here, now let's talk about it. So I think having somebody just to say it's normal, it's a normal process, but let's have a look at what we can do to make it better for you. And that's what we do. That's what I do. I just try and make the journey better, and I make it a positive journey, because the stigma around menopause has always been, oh my God, the menopause, it's going to be horrendous, and it doesn't have to be that way. Mine wasn't horrendous. All right, sometimes I'm stood there and I have a hot sweat every now and again, but hey, we're in Dubai, we can get away with it. Do you know what I mean? I'm a fitness instructor, personal trainer, I can get away with it. But so it's just accepting it and going, I'm having a hot flush, and I'll just say, you know what, sorry, I'm having a bit of a hot flush, and I'll grab a tissue and I'll dab my forehead. I'm not embarrassed about it. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing to be embarrassed about. There's nothing you can do. It's coming whether you like it or not. Yeah. And it's how you change your mindset towards it and manage it. Yeah. And I saw it as a process of sort of, and this is what I say to my clients, see it as a process of reinventing yourself or rediscovering stuff that you need to do to change. Like my diet, I loved looking at new recipes and changing the way that I, eat, or, cut. All right, I didn't like cutting out cheese. I'm going to be frank. Cheese was killer. But look, when I eat cheese, dairy now, if I eat it, I now know what the symptoms are. I know what the cause is, should I say. So if I have it, it's my own fault. But then next day I won't have it for weeks. And, so every time I go down the cheese counter, I just smile at it, walk past. But
save it for occasion where you can take
it. Yeah. And, the other one is, we've got to speak about alcohol, because alcohol is a massive killer for your symptoms and stuff. If I have to say one thing, for me, I haven't drank for a long time, but for me, if we have a drink, we don't sleep right, we feel rubbish the next day. And if you've got the symptoms on top of all of that, it just makes you feel worse. So, and our insulin levels do change rapidly, even for people like ourselves that are quite healthy and don't have a lot. Our bodies are still changing. So our insulin resistance is still changing constantly. So, that sugar content is not great. So that's the thing.
That's an interesting point, right? I like alcohol. So I haven't had a drink now for 2.5 years ish, something like that. And it was as a result of COVID, and just very much probably having more than what I would have normally had. Because we was in lockdown, we was in the UK, and it was like conditions and all that kind of stuff. So I was already drinking probably a bit more than I would have liked. And I was like, no, let me just do a year and see how do I feel. And then I was like, if I fancy it, then I'll have it again after that year. But I just have never fancied it again, because I feel so much better without it. And that's without any additional symptoms. So I can only imagine like how much alcohol would then mask what you're going through, like when it comes to being able to pinpoint specific things, as well as make everything 10 times worse. So I hear you on that massively.
And I think with just another thing about the alcohol as well is our bodies can't get rid of the toxins as quick as what they used to do. Our liver function is changing. So you'll often sometimes hear people say, oh, I can't drink as much as I used to be able to. Yeah. First of all, that we're changing, our bodies are changing, so we can't, cope with that amount anyway. But even some, like if the odd time when I do maybe have a glass of wine every now and again, when I used to, it still affected me really bad. Whereas before I used to be able to drink quite a lot. I'm not proud of that, but I used to drink more than two glasses of wine, for example. But your body really is affected by it a lot quicker, and your liver's just not getting rid of those toxins out of the body. And we suffer from toxicity anyway. I think a lot of us, suffer from that. And not only that, our bodies are changing. It's called xenoestrogen. So basically what happens is your body can start changing some of these toxins into estrogen, and we can then start being over estrogen dominant. And that's where people start to get that belly fat around the middle, if you're still producing estrogen and having all these toxins that very clever turn themselves into estrogen. So that's that estrogen dominance you might have heard about. Yeah. But that's another topic. But so we've just got to be really careful of the toxins and stuff that we put into our bodies, just to help the liver function, because it is changing, to help get rid of it.
Yeah. And I think what you mentioned about mindset being a really important piece of this is critical, because our environment and our conditioning will affect our relationship with alcohol. You know, if your friends or your family drink and you choose not to, sometimes there's like connotations attached to that, right? And banter that people don't really enjoy, like, oh, you're a lightweight or this or that, or why, you don't want to go for the questioning and that side of it. But also conditioning from a point of what the future could look like. You know, I've already shared that I'm surrounded by quite a few people that have been suffering with it, and I'm seeing that picture thinking there's got to be an alternative, and I don't know that many people who have been through it and felt okay. So it's like, this is what one of the reasons why I'm so curious about it, because I don't want to be conditioned by that, thinking that that is the only way. And it can happen so subtly, especially if we're not self-aware. So I think it's really important to be like what you've been saying is showcasing that it's not always going to be like this. It's not all bad, and it might be that you have one symptom, it might be that you suffer for a certain period of time, but then you kind of get your head around it and you find your rhythm to it, right? So it's not necessarily this going to be a terrible part of your life.
No, not at all. And I really do believe the more you look after yourself and care for yourself, the better it is for you as you go through it. And this is something we're just learning. You know, it's like, you've been in the industry just as long as I have. And, you know, it's like when you work with clients and you go, right, okay, let's have a look at your habits. Let's see if we can change it. They just don't want to let go of them, because they know they've got years ahead of them. Like, oh, I'm okay, I'm in my 20s, it'll be fine. And then you get to your 30s, it's a little bit harder, and it's a little bit harder. And then you go, well, if I could have told you back in your 20s what you should have done. And that's what I'm saying now. Do it in your 30s. Make sure that you're looking after your health and well-being. Check your hormonal profile every year. Make sure that you understand it. Because we talk about estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, because they're our sex hormones, and they're the three that generally are obviously deplete, fall off a cliff. But you know, then we've got, it has an effect on all the other stuff, like our, you know, thyroid. It could affect our leptin and our ghrelin, which are hunger and full hormones. So it affects all the other stuff that has an effect on other things that are going on, you know. So it's that catch-22 scenario. So the more you're aware of it and you have that mental attitude to say, okay, let's do this, let's take control of it. And I've been fine through it, to be honest. Not fine. If you ask my husband, it's probably a different story. So like the snappiness, yeah, 100%. I know I've been snappy, but it's recognizing it and going back and saying sorry. You know,
Yeah,
that's the thing. It's like, you know, I didn't mean that, or I might not be sorry all the time, but you know, and relationship. Yeah, and you touched on relationships, and it is really, you have to have that open conversation, because if not, all those connotations get thrown at you, like, oh, you're just going through the menopause, you know, and things that we've heard for years, you know, oh, you must be on your period or whatever it is. And you know what, not all of it is down to the menopause. You know, people can say, because if they know you, they know that that's not who you normally are. So like you, and you know your friends around you, you know that that's, if she snaps at you every now and again, you know that that's normally not how she is. So you can just take it, and you don't aggravate the situation by snapping back at her, for example. It's learning. You're learning. So it's quite interesting.
It's very interesting. Is there a direct correlation between divorce and menopause?
Yeah, big one.
It just sounds like common sense to me, but I've never like looked at the data or anything to know if that's actually true.
Funny, you know, I was having a conversation with a group of men Tuesday, and they were saying that in the States that the divorce rate is really high from this age group, from our age group, and it's usually activated by the woman in this age group. And I said to them, yeah, okay, I get that. And I said, I can understand why the menopause may have that effect. But you've got to remember that also during this time frame is that you've been with somebody maybe for quite a long time. The relationship is probably phased out years before the divorce actually happens. Your kids you might be staying together purely for the kids. Now the kids have left for university. Now it's time to separate. or you've just had enough. And one thing that women do say is usually when you get into the menopausal stage, when you've gone through that perimenopausal, pre-perimenopausal stage, you're quite clear on what you want and what you don't want.
Yeah.
And usually it's your husband. No, it's not. But um, you are quite clear because you've gone through it. You've sifted out all the rubbish because you've taken that self-care.
Yes.
You've taken back a bit of control, and
Mm.
it's like, I quite like this being on my own for a bit, and you get, so you are quite, you've got more clarity about what you want in life and what you don't want in life. And if you've been going through a rocky road with your relationship at that point, then yes, maybe is that divorce route that you take, I don't know, or separation. But it doesn't. And one interesting thing is I did have a couple of ladies that I worked with last year, and they said if they'd have known now how to manage their symptoms and the options that they have, they probably wouldn't have got a divorce.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That
It's like,
that
it's
level
interesting.
of self-awareness, and then being able to communicate what you're experiencing and then build that journey with your partner, I think could be
Yeah.
really quite rewarding, and actually you can come out the other side even stronger. I'm very lucky. I've got quite a conscious husband who he learned about the infradian rhythm before I did.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I'm
oh,
looking this up.
what are you talking about, really? And then I started to like kind of go down that rabbit hole as well. So I think I'm quite lucky on that standpoint, but the communication thing I think is really, really, really critical.
Yeah, because often when I'm not coaching clients, but when I'm doing my education or talking about it on whatever, he used to say, "Oh my God, I never realized that it lasts." He thought it was like a month thing and it was over, or never realized how many symptoms they were. So it is really eye-opening for them, for the partners as well. To that point, I did then say, right, okay, I'm going to do this thing called Men Take a Pause, where I've done a 60-minute very logic. This is what happens, this is why we go through it, and this is how we manage it, and this is how you can help co-share it. Because a lot of men like to fix things, they want to know how to fix it, and they can't. All they need to do is co-share it, or understand that sometimes when we snap, it's not at them, it's sometimes we're frustrated or angry with ourselves, or fed up of feeling this way, that it comes out, it manifests in different ways. So it's letting them understand that they need to take a breath, walk away, because that instant reaction sometimes can be gone in seconds. Like, you want to kill somebody when they walk through the door, but if you've gone do something different, it's gone. It literally disappears.
Yeah.
So it's getting them to understand what they can do, not put pressure on like the sexual part of the relationship, understand why you're not having as much sex as you used to have. That conversation can happen just as easy, like saying, why? Because it really hurts. My vagina wall is getting thinner. There are some things that we can maybe try and do, or may have date nights without a sexual attachment to it, make her feel good about herself. So there's all sorts of different ways that the man can help without being overpowering, and thinking that they can take control of it and stuff like that. So it's interesting when you do talk to men how they perceive the menopause, and again, it comes back from all the old rhetoric that we've grown up with years ago, so, and their mindset needs to change.
Yeah, true. And we also have to remember that they're also human too, in the sense that they will take things personally. And if they don't have a logical explanation and understanding of why you're maybe treating them a certain way, or why maybe you are less intimate, or you are being more snappy, or something else, like or maybe you're leaning more into your friendships rather than your romantic relationship, because they do understand, like they will take that personally unless there is an explanation. Right? So I think as women we need to be compassionate also, and I think that compassion, I think, kind of definitely works both ways. But I love that you've created that. I think that's blooming brilliant, and we'll make sure the links to that are in these show notes as well to today's conversation, so that the women listening can maybe buy it as a gift.
Buy it. Well, yeah, they can give it the link to yeah, it's like, listen to this. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I got one woman to actually, one lady, sorry, to go down I've got a symptom checker, which they can go on the website and download, that's fine. And I said, you fill your symptom checker out and get your husband to fill the symptom checker out.
Yeah. Interesting.
And And it was really interesting how the difference in what he was seeing as symptoms and what she was experiencing symptoms. And that was a conversational piece then. They got to talk about it rather than, her say, well, this is what I'm going through and you don't understand it. Right, okay, well then let me find out what I'm seeing on this side of the menopause. And that was quite interesting.
That is really interesting. I think that's something practical somebody can go away and just do right now, right, straight off the back of this conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've got two more questions for you. One, because you've touched upon this, which is like, at what point do you see a GP, or at what point do you start getting these hormones checked? So I think more intuitively, more than anything, started to do a hormone panel every year since I was 30, and it started with one of those, like, deliver it at the door. They just do your blood prick and then you send it away. So it's like super easy, super convenient. And then since it's I'll go to the doctor and do a full panel and stuff like that. But what's the norm? I've just done that. That don't necessarily know that that's the kind of a protocol or anything, but what's the right, if there is one?
Yeah, no, there's no right and wrong. I think having those checkups every year is a good thing. Make the usual stuff, and I think the other thing as well is your vitamins and minerals as well, because a lot of symptoms can come down to your lack of vitamin Bs, for example, like energy drivers, or vitamin D and C. So having not only your hormone profile, because it's really good to track your hormone profile. I think it's really important to not leave it till you get those symptoms. Your vitamin and minerals, have them checked regularly. And I think once you start to accept and then understand your body or experience some of the symptoms, then you can then maybe look up and try and tweak some of the changes that you might need to do. Or go to your GP or somebody like me or your gynae and go, look, okay, I'm experiencing this. I think it might be the menopause, but can you explain to me what my options are? You don't have to take HRT there and then. But like I explained a little bit earlier, don't leave it till it's too late. Don't leave it till you're really suffering with migraines or brain fog or, all the other symptoms that you might experience. So there's no set rule. You must go here, here, and here. Apart from the HRT, you need to start taking it. I think it's 10 years. It could change. It's changing a little bit now. 10 years before you get to post-menopause, or in post-menopause. That then is cancer. You have got cancer risks at that point. But other than that, there's no real set point. Just understand it first, educate yourself, and then you can go to your doctor and find a doctor who understands the menopause. If not, they will send you down a rabbit warren and end it with antidepressants and God knows what. So I always really say, make a diary, keep a diary, and then you can go in and take relevant up-to-date information that they can work with, and it's not their fault either, because they really didn't get a lot of medical training on the menopause. Can you believe that? 4 hours through the whole medical, and so it's very far and few between that you'll get doctors who actually understand it, and there's some good doctors here that are in that space now, thank God. Don't leave it till you're really suffering. Just go in and get information about it first, and then come away and have a think about it.
If any of our listeners are based here in the UAE and they are struggling to find perhaps a doctor they can trust, they can reach out to you and perhaps you'll give them some suggestions. And
with the GCC summit as well, we're actually going to put a resource list on there for even for doctors that are not taking part of the GCC summit. We'll put them on there so that they know that they're the relevant ones, because the problem is when the doctors are good, they're full. So we often say, it's like waiting a 4-month waiting list for some doctors. Why wait 4 months when you could come to somebody like myself? Let's start the journey now, start putting some changes, and then go and see, we'll navigate you to another doctor who can give you the same information. So you don't need to wait. There's somebody out there that can help. It's just finding the right resources.
Amazing. Brilliant. Thank you.
Even in the UK, if you jump onto Louise Newson, she's really, really good. She's got loads of research on there for and advice for people to go on to as well. So that's there for you. And Davina McCall as well.
Amazing, brilliant. She's making waves, is definitely she in this topic at the moment. So my final question for you then is, you've already touched upon some of the like common pitfalls, I think, that we typically will fall into. But is there anything else that you feel like our listeners need to know that we haven't mentioned, that you're like, why is nobody shouting this from the rooftops? What do they like really need to know?
It's so hard because there's so many different facets of the menopause, and I think you know, I think we should be really looking at our mental health and well-being. I don't think people touch on that enough.
Yeah.
It really does affect us, and our brain health, I think, and gut health. I think they're the two main things that we should be looking at, because if you can sort of manage that, and again, it comes all back down to food. It's really interesting. Everything, everything that manifests is through, I believe, through food and our lifestyles. So I think we've touched on most of the stuff without getting, going into a complete different direction. But I think if I had to give some tips away, it's like being self-aware. Don't put your head in the sand and think that this is not going to happen to you, because it will, and whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And when I talk to women, they'll go, "Oh, I'm not there yet," and I'll go, "How old are you?" And they'll go, "Oh, I'm in my late 40s," and I'll go, "Okay." Some women don't, some women don't have anything, and I'm just like, really? You don't have anything? You're really lucky. But that can be genetic, and that's a good thing as well. Sometimes they always say to me, is it, if I knew what my mum and my sisters went through the menopause, is that going to happen to me? There is that genetic brain fog, that connection.
Yeah.
However, your life, if my mum smoked, for example, I've never smoked, so there's always what your lifestyle is about compared to what your mums and your sisters will go through. So connect with yourself, don't bury your head in the sand, start researching and educating yourself on it. Don't keep it to yourself, ask for help, go see your gynecologist, a coach, me, whoever, and talk to your female friends. They might have gone through it, they could give you a little bit of advice.
Yeah.
And then just start changing, looking at your habits.
Yeah.
Can you change the stress in your life? Can you change your sleep routine? Look at your nutrition and your exercise. And I think once you start to start to look at those few little bits, then you should be okay. But there are other stuff around it, but I think for now, I think that's fine. We could do another one later.
Yeah. So I'm just going to bring you back on every time I've got questions.
Yeah. It's like, I'm having this symptom. Should we talk about it? We're all topic on it.
Exactly. But the GCC Menopause Summit is coming up on October the 18th here in the UAE. So obviously to dive into these topics further and to learn more about some things maybe you haven't touched upon, I'm sure there'll be plenty of opportunity there, right?
Yeah, that's it. And the main thing for the GCC Summit is what we wanted to do is bring a load of different people under one roof, so that we cover everything from the medical side, cancer and menopause, mental health, all the 4 pillars that we spoke about. So we just dive deeper into these topics so that you can go away, understand it, why we get it, and what resources and information you can use to whenever it's not just for people going through the menopause. Like we said, it's for the women who are maybe just coming up to it or in pre. It's an educational process.
Yeah, definitely. Amazing. Well, I will definitely be there. So if any of our listeners are there, come say hello and come learn together. And listen, thank you so much. Thank you for leading the way with this and bringing this topic to the forefront. I think it's so important. I'm very grateful personally, and I know our listeners will be as well. And I can only imagine the other good work that you've already been doing with clients. And so thank you for sharing your own journey as part of that. And I'm very grateful that you've chosen to use that right as a fuel to then help other people, because not everybody does that also. So thank you so much, and thank you for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'll see you in October.
Yeah, 100%. And to all of our listeners, all of the links where you can find Sharon will be obviously in the show notes. She'll be tagged in this post. Also the link to that summit will be in the show notes as well. All right, so thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Take care.
If you enjoyed this episode and you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode.
Then share it with a friend who you think might benefit.
Spread the word. That's how we're going to impact the world, by helping each other.
We appreciate you so much, and as always, unconditional love and wellness to you.